Salaman alaikum wa nur alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Allahumma salli wa ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Salam everyone. So this is my video on Red Shi'ism. And to the people watching this on TikTok will be a series of videos. I have both a TikTok and a YouTube channel to clarify. So this is based on the piece of writing by Ali Shariati. He lived in Iran. He was born November 1933, and then June 1977 is when he left this world. He was an Iranian revolutionary and sociologist, and he specialized in the sociology of religion. So he went to France for some time, and he learned about revolutionary politics. And he saw the same kind of impulse in the traditions of the Ahl-Bayt alayhi salam and in the Quran of equal resource distribution, resource equity, opposition to tyranny, all of these things that we would find kind of within socialism, contemporary socialism. We find these same values and same teachings latent in the traditions of the Ahl-Bayt alayhim assalam. So now I would like to premise this entire video with a clause that is, I do not believe that contemporary socialist movements or socialism is equal to or superior to the design in the vision of the Ahl-Bayt alayhi salam and what they had wanted for society. However, there is traditions in our four main hadith corpuses that teach that there will not be any political system or political leader that can take the place of the Imams alayhi salam. So we await Imam Mahdi to reestablish the optimal political system, but in this epoch, which would be the post-capitalist epoch, where capitalism is no longer working, I do believe socialism is a better option than currently what we have now, these modern-day pharaohs. So first and foremost, let us define what is Red Shi'ism and what is Black Shi'ism, according to Ali Shariati. So according to Ali Shariati, Red Shi'ism is like the more active and the more action-based, martyrdom-based Shi'ism. Red Shi'ism would emphasize opposition to tyranny, active opposition to tyranny, social responsibility, jihad, reform, helping the poor, helping the downtrodden and the oppressed, mobilizing the poor and the oppressed and the lower class of society or working class of society, encourages questioning and critiquing unjust authority. Red, as in the blood of the martyrs of the Ahl-Bayt alayhi salam and the Shiites, and of course in general the working class or oppressed and subjugated people. Black Shi'ism, on the other hand, would be the Shi'ism of the royal courts, political accommodation, a more so passive and ritualistic form of Shi'ism, more focused on mourning without social change, treats Karbala mainly as a historical tragedy to commemorate, not as an inspiring event, both esoterically and perhaps politically as a symbol of class revolt or inspiration to class revolt. Emphasizes rituals and ceremonies while neglecting their ethical or esoteric message. And it can easily become aligned with wealthy elites and corrupt systems of power. It encourages obedience to a potential tyrant rather than questioning of that tyrant. And black, of course, is the symbol of mourning. So we see that Red Shi'ism is the more active kind of Shi'ism, and Black Shi'ism is the more pacifist, potentially weaponized form of Shi'ism. So, I will now share some of the quotes of Ali Shariati from Red Shi'ism, Black Shi'ism. I quote, Ashura recalls the teaching of this continuing fact that the present Islam, this is 1972, is a criminal Islam in the dress of tradition, and that the real Islam is the hidden Islam, hidden in the red cloak of martyrdom, being the Ahl Bayt alayhim salam and their Shias. I quote Ali Shariati, Shiites turn their back on the opulent mosques in the magnificent palaces of caliphs of Islam and turn to the lonely mud house of Fatima. They choose mourning for continuing the constant historical struggle of the Shiites against usurpation, treachery, cruelty, and the sources of fraud, lying, and degeneration, and especially for keeping alive in the memories of the martyrs. Remember Ashura to humiliate the ruling group who call themselves the inheritors of the traditions of the Prophet ﷺ. For the remembrance of it will prove that they are the inheritors of the killers and murderers of the Prophet's family, the Ahl Bayt alayhim salam. This, of course, is referring to the numerous, very powerful, and continually expanding and powerful Sunni governments, often compromised by Western imperial forces. We can observe that for over 8 centuries, Alawite Shi'ism was not just a revolutionary movement in history which opposed all the autocratic and class-conscious regimes of the Umayyad and Abbasid Caliphate in the kingship of the Ghaznavids, Seljuks, the Mongols, Timurids, and the Second Khanids, who made the government version of the Sunni school their official religion and waged a secret struggle of ideas and action. Like any revolutionary party, Shi'ism had a well-organized, informed, deep, and well-defined ideology with clear-cut and definite slogans and a disciplined and well-groomed organization. It led the deprived and oppressed masses in their movements for freedom and for the seeking of justice. I like this quote of Ali Shariati that's also found in this piece of writing. The religious body of the Sunni sect, which had from the beginning become the governments of Islam, becomes a conglomeration of the most debased and prejudiced beliefs and harsh rules. It turns into a tool for the justification of the anti-human ways of the rulers. It compromises with the autocratic regimes of the Ghaznavid and the Seljuk Turks and the Mongols. And he quotes Marx in this quote, and becomes an opiate for the masses. Okay, this is from Karl Marx, opiate for the masses. Let's see how he described religious institutions. So here, he's using Marxian terminology. It becomes opiate for the masses and an instrument for murder to be used against any thought or action that jeopardizes the interest of the strong and harms the landlords and feudal chiefs. So here you can really see he's integrating or assimilating class consciousness and contemporary socialism with, accusations of the various Sunni empires, them almost being the archetypal, oppressor. We find this in modern capitalist systems. So one interesting thing about this piece of writing is there's a section where Fatima alayhi salam and the first 4 imams alayhim salam and associates them with various phases of revolution and various symbols of class struggle, such as Fatima alayhi salam, the hair of the Prophet, the manifestation of the rights of the oppressed, and at the same time, the symbol of the first objection, a strong and clear embodiment of seeking of justice in the ruling system. These are the cries and slogans of subject nations and oppressed classes. And there's hadith that display that Fatima was also very, very much keen on the equal distribution of wealth in feeding the poor and the downtrodden, giving resources to the poor and the downtrodden. And in many ways, her suffering was so that she could intercede on behalf of those who are misguided so that they can enter on Tajana. Imam Ali alayhi al-salam, the manifestation of a justice which serves the oppressed, and a sublime embodiment of the truth who is sacrificed at the altar of the anti-human regimes which lie hidden in the layers of formal religion of the rulers. Imam Hassan, alayhi salam, the manifestation of the last resistance of the garrison of Imamate Islam, who confronts the first garrison of Islamic rule. Imam Hussein, alayhi salam, bears witness to those who are martyred by the oppression in history, heir of all leaders of freedom and equality, and seekers of justice from Adam to himself forever, the messenger of martyrdom, the manifestation of the blood of revolution. So here Imam Hussein is brought forward as like this symbol of all martyrs who have fought against oppression and died to uh, help the oppressed and to help the people and help their oppressed and downtrodden against against tyrants. He's like the martyr of the revolution. And then we have Imam Zainab, which is the fourth Imam, Imam Sajjad, alayhi salam, bears witness to all of the defenseless prisoners in the system of executioners, the messenger after martyrdom, the manifestation of the message of revolution. Shiites find their slogans in the embodiment of the tribulations, in the hopes of the masses, of the oppressed, aware of the rulers, and in rebellion against them. They cry out, seek the leadership of Ali, alayhi salam, and flee from the leadership of cruelty. Choose imamate and stamp cancelled disbelief and usurpation upon the forehead of the caliphate. And now we look at Taqiyya, and he kind of draws a revolutionary parallel to Taqiyya, with various different socialist regimes having to go into hiding in the lands of their oppressors, like the Russian Social Labor Party, especially its Bolshevik faction. They operated underground. They used alias secret printing presses, coded communications, and safe houses. A lot of them faced imprisonment and exile. So just to clarify, Taqiyya is if you are a Shiite and you're living in an oppressive area or amongst oppressors, that you hide the fact that you are a Shiite. And some of the Imams have practiced Taqiyya, and at certain times were commanded to do Taqiyya by the Imams. The Shiites were commanded to do Taqiyya, and there's a parallel drawn between recent socialist movements and having to do kind of a similar thing, not claiming that they are Shiites, not claiming that they're doing that because of the command of the Ahl Bayt alayhi salam. Of course, not all of them were Shiites. Probably the majority of these socialists were not Shiites. But there's just a common impulse with the Taqiyya, commonalities with the Taqiyya of the Shiites and with some socialist movements hiding in the nation of their oppressors. Like the French resistance included socialist, communist, and other Marxist groups. During the occupation of France, resistance networks relied on clandestine cells, forged documents, and covert publications to avoid detection. We see the Communist Party of Spain operated secretly for decades because political opposition was prohibited during the dictatorship. It maintained the underground publications, labor organizing, and covert party structure. So I turn us back to some more of the sayings of Ali Shariati. I thought this was interesting. More pressure was applied to the Shiites after their uprising. When this occurred, the Shiite front became stronger, the basic slogans of their movement more potent, and the struggle of the Shiites more acute and more weighty. It changed from a school of thought, a way of study, and religious sectarianism reserved for the intellectuals and the chosen few, to a way of correctly understanding Islam and the culture of the people of the Ahl Bayt when confronted by Greek philosophy and Oriental Sufism, to a deep-rooted and revolutionary socio-political movement of the masses, especially the rural masses. It caused greater fright in the autocratic rulers and the hypocritical religious bodies who rule the people in the name of the Sunni sect. So I do agree with what he's saying. I do think that this quote in particular is lacking some of the esoteric depth. I do believe that Shiite Islam is ultimately a deeply esoteric system of knowledge and way of living, that the Imams alayhim salam had the monopoly and had the initiation into the esoteric mysteries imparted unto them by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But I also do think that there is a more Zahiri, outer form of Shi'ism, and I can see how it can be useful and a lot of the values to be useful in mobilizing the working class and in preaching class consciousness and internationalist class consciousness. Uh, yeah. Another quote of Ali Shariati. It keeps alive, meaning Shi'ism, the hope of redemption after martyrdom. It promotes the idea of revenge and revolt, faith in the ultimate downfall of tyrants, in the decrees of destiny against the ruling powers who spread justice by the sword. It prepares all of the oppressed and justice-seeking masses who await the participation in the revolt. So this is referring to, this refers to the Qayyim, alayhi salam. So I want to look at some of the traditions of the Ahl Bayt, alayhi salam, verses from the Quran with some of the words of socialist leaders. So this is James Connolly, an Irish socialist. Governments in capitalist society are but committees of the rich to manage the affairs of the capitalist class. Now we turn to Quran, Surah Nisa 135. Stand firmly for justice, even against yourselves or your relatives. Now we look at the Shia Hadith, the sayings of Imam Ali. The foundation of government is justice. Here again, we have another saying of Connolly: the cause of labor is the cause of Ireland. The cause of Ireland is the cause of labor. This is mirrored in the Quran. Why should you not fight in the cause of Allah for the oppressed? James Connolly is talking about the cause of labor is the cause of Ireland. And Imam Hussein here says, I rose to seek reform in the nation of my grandfather. We see equality. Karl Marx says, from each according to his ability, to each according to his needs. Quran 49:13, Allah speaks unto all of humanity and says, the most noble of you before Allah is the most righteous. And Imam Ali alayhi salam says, people are of two kinds, your brothers in faith or your equals in humanity. So here we see, a very universalist, internationalist message in all three of these sayings of Karl Marx, of the Quran, and of Imam Ali. No, I'm not equating the words of Karl Marx with that of Imam Ali or that of the Quran. I'm not doing that. I'm just showing some of the commonalities is all. Of course, I take the Kalam Allah, the Quran, and the words of the Imam as sacred and far more lofty than the words of any political leader after or leading up to the reappearance of the Qayyim, alayhi salam. This is just kind of an interesting look in potential class mobilization and labor consciousness and class consciousness, and could it relate to Shiite teachings? I believe it can. And another saying about wealth and hoarding. Karl Marx says, capital is dead labor, which lives by sucking living labor. Quran 9:34-35. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Condemns those who hoard gold and silver without spending in the way of Allah. Imam Ali alayhi salam criticized accumulated wealth when the poor suffered in Naj al-Balagha. And I look at a quote from Lenin. There are decades where nothing happens, and there are weeks where decades happen, referring to times of oppression where there's no progress made for the working class, and then there's weeks of revolution when decades of progress are made for the working class. Quran 28:5. We wished to favor those who are oppressed in the land and make them leaders. Imam Hussein at Karbala refused allegiance to tyranny. He chose to stand with the oppressed. So we see a common thread here, a common impulse, and that is to stand with the oppressed and to stand for the oppressed, the working class, or the people being oppressed in the society. So this was a look into red Shi'ism versus black Shi'ism of Ali Shariati, and a general kind of discussion on socialism and Shi'ism, and kind of, some Ali Shariati being, there's several, but Ali Shariati being one of a kind of socialist leaning Shiite who spoke on both of those topics, which I find, very inspiring, also being a socialist leaning Shiite as well. So thank you for watching this video, and peace and truth to everyone here. Salam.